Hi everyone. My name is Dave Keane. I'm the VP of Digital Therapeutics here at Atai, as well as the CEO of Introspect Digital Therapeutics. And today I'm going to be giving a talk not just about what Introspect is, and obviously a demo, but why we built our platform the way that we did, and how our team thinks about product and some of the cool work that's coming up on the horizon. This talk is called Moving at the Speed of Content. Because Paul's better at coming up with titles than Jonathan or myself. But really, it sums up the priority that our team places on execution speed, and that content's at the core of everything that we do. Really quickly, I just want to say that I'm thrilled to be here. I love working at a fast-moving company that is poised to make a real impact in the world. And also, Atai is a company that truly lives out its values in the way that it treats its employees and the decisions that it makes. And I really love that I've had the opportunity to be able to work at a company like this in my career. I come from the video game industry, so that's not really common. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for giving me the opportunity to work here and for being such a great group of people. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is the Introspect team. We're currently 10 people strong. We would love it if you corner us later today and you ask us some questions about DTX, but you will get a chance to meet all of us virtually through the app link that we sent out to you last night. There's a bunch of videos that you can watch that introduces each team member and what we do, and sneakily show you a little bit about our features. If your phone, I should quickly say, if your phone isn't in English translation, we have only translated our app into English. So you will hit a small bug if you've got a German phone or something. It'll say loading translations, and it'll just sit there forever. Frank discovered that a little earlier. So if you want to go in and see the Introspect demo, you will have to go into your settings and just set your phone translation to English. That's something that we'll be fixing as we move our trials into places outside of the US. But in true agile form, we haven't done anything that we don't have to do yet. Before moving on, I do have to make a shout out for this team. In almost 30 years of software development, I've never worked with a more honest, vulnerable, and healthy team as this one. Except for Justin, our new guy. I actually haven't met him yet, so he might be a jerk. I don't know. But I'm convinced that the secret to rapid software development is at least 50% team dynamics. And the speed and the quality that we're able to produce at Introspect is absolutely attributed to the way that these people work together. Introspect is more than just an app. I mean, it is an app that we'll show today, but it's a rapid development platform for digital therapeutics. I'm going to tell a short story before our demo. So my background's in software development. I am not a doctor. I am not a researcher. I'm specifically from the video game industry. Like many of us, I was brought onto Atai by Srini about 2.5 years ago. And he recognized really early that all of the programs that we're doing here could benefit from extending out with a digital therapeutic. At my last gig, I founded a company to address anxiety and depression in Alzheimer's and dementia using a technique called reminiscence therapy digitally. We were the second company to receive FDA breakthrough status from the FDA on a digital therapeutic, as well as the first to receive a hardware in Alzheimer's. So Srini thought that was a good idea and brought me on to, quote, make a DTX for us, which in a way kind of makes, that's literally the conversation we have. Do something DTX-y, please. And in a way that kind of makes sense. But I wouldn't have asked a dude who worked on GTA 5 to make a combination product to assist people struggling with drug addiction. I'm just saying. Now, I'm metacognitively aware enough to know that I couldn't design an app or a protocol to address anything. But I had a lot of experience building large, scalable online systems, and I knew that someday we would hire a team that would design those digital therapeutic protocols. And that, at our core, that's what would make Introspect successful, not any cool software or clever server design or things like that. So I brought on Mike Stang, our director of engineering, and together, instead of creating a digital therapeutic, we decided to build a platform that could enable us to build any digital therapeutic really fast. and that we could delay the actual content till later, which turned out to be a really interesting and important inversion of how most DTX products are made. By delaying the focus on specific content or protocol, it made us elevate the importance of the content creators. So in most DTX companies, the content team, they enable the development team to do their job. And at Introspect, the development team exists to enable the content team to do its job. So enough about tech, let's get on to content. So like Jennifer said yesterday, there's a difference between a recreational trip and a therapeutic psychedelic experience. Although you might have a meaningful experience, it's unlikely to be therapeutic without having some key components. The first piece is ensuring proper preparation, which includes intention setting and the person's mental and physical space. The next is integration, and it's an incredibly important component. Integration includes helping the person make sense of what they've just experienced and how it impacts their perspective of themselves in the world. How has their perspective shift? And lastly, a commitment to action. Ed Newhouse recently published an article on the innovative idea of behavioral psychedelics, the marrying of behavior change with a psychedelic experience. This integration of mind and behavior is really exemplified by some of the work that Matt Sachs has been doing, who's embedding proven therapeutic interventions with the content of the app. So enough talk, let's get on to a demo. What you see here on the left-hand side is a printout that comes from our admin tool that invites someone into the app. We didn't print this out for all you guys, we just sent you out your codes on here. But someone coming into to one of our trials would be able to scan one of our QR codes, go right into the app, and insert their code. So I'm gonna, on my phone here, open up our app, and I'm gonna take you through sort of what a user would experience when they first log in. So my code is, and hopefully I can do this fast, SH6W4JA5K8. Okay, so I'm in, I'm gonna create a username, I'm gonna be, I don't know how many Dave accounts I'm gonna make, so I'm gonna make a really big one. And I'm gonna set my password to the incredibly secure Dave. And go ahead and jump in. Now, the first thing we're seeing here is an onboarding screen. And this is actually the first piece of editable content. When we were creating the app, we didn't know what sort of tutorials that someone would want to flip through when they're starting with the app. So we said, let's just make that configurable. So Jonathan here is going to open up, this is our content management tool, CMS. And that's the TLA for content management. And you can see here, he's setting up the onboarding for this specific indication or this specific course. So we take a metaphor like school for the things that we're doing. People get enrolled into courses, and the course has content, and content's put together into assignments. So we're looking here at the onboarding. Here's the Portugal demo. You've successfully logged in. We could have dragged over some images and changed what the background was, but these are the ones that we're using for ketamine right now, and we were being lazy. So I'm gonna jump through this, and there's some nice meaningless things that we put into the tutorial because we didn't know what to write for this specific course. But for the ketamine one, there's information about what to expect through the program, as well as some safety information for the patients. So the last step of every iOS app is to accept permissions, because iOS requires you do all that. I'm gonna allow notifications so that I can bug myself later, and let's get started. So what it's doing is it's loading up the videos. Everything on our server everything on our system runs from the server side. We don't have a lot of stuff stored on the app. It's really a thin client for what's happening on the server. And here you can see one of our actors who's going to take us through a session on goal setting. There's a couple other things that's happening here. You can see yesterday I had a mood rating scale to do, and I had completed that one, but there's a new mood rating scale for me to do today. We let the patient sort of choose between what things are required to do, but we always have things that are highlighted that are the most important, and that's all, again, configurable in the content tool. So I'm going to take my mood rating scale right now. It's giving me some instructions on how to do it. Please tap and hold my slider down. So this is a visual acuity scale that's going to let me say how my mood is. Let's see here. I'm pretty happy right now, so I'm gonna give myself a 6. Oh, do I feel anxious? Yeah, I'm very anxious right now. Self-confident. Well, luckily I'm also very self-confident, so that's fine. And we'll submit that answer. That survey that you just saw is, again, content. So if you want to bring up the rating scale content, you can see how we edit those things. All of the images for the VAS, the person can just drag on if they wanted to make a visual acuity scale that let them choose between, Ferraris and Lamborghinis, then Srini would be able to do that. And what's interesting here is actually not just the questions that we're asking in the survey is something that that is content to us, but even the way that the survey is interpreted, meaning higher order metrics of how the individual answers roll up into a depression score or an anxiety score. Even those, the summation or averages or choosing one over the other, that's definable in the content using the WYSIWYG editor. We'll define WYSIWYG later. And even how we display it on the admin site. Do we chart this image, or do we chart this? How do we chart this? What's the scales that we chart this on? All of that's configurable. So you don't have to worry about calling up a dev and being like, hey, we've got this new thing we want to do. Can you wait for a 2-week sprint for us to get it done? I'll define sprint later. But let's jump in and see what some of our content looks like. This is Beth, one of our actors that we use. And hopefully this will give you a good idea of what the experience for the patient is like. If my Wi-Fi is working well.
Let's talk about setting your goals. You need reasons why you do something, the end game, the purpose. Without goals, you'll likely find yourself going in circles. Treatment is no different. To get the most out of your therapy now, during your treatment, and far beyond, you need to start by setting your goals. Earlier, we said where your focus goes, the energy flows. As you go into this experience, think about what you're hoping to achieve. Maybe you'd like to feel better than you did last year, or even last week. Maybe you'd like to feel more in control of your emotions. Maybe it's to better understand your feelings, yourself, or maybe there's something more specific you're looking for. Whatever it might be, I invite you to close your eyes, come back to your breath, and focus on what you decided to explore. Good. Now open your eyes and let's do a brief goal-setting activity.
So here our actor looks down and introduces the new activity that we're going to go into. So it feels almost like we're talking with the same actor. We're in a dialogue right now. She's saying, during this dialogue activity, we'll work through and identifying one personal relevant goal that you can use. So we'll say, okay. You can see that there's different avatar images that can show emotions and make it feel more like you're chatting with the person. So as we approach your ketamine session, what would you like to get out of this experience? And if you look over here, this is how we define dialogues inside of our system. And if you can bring up the graph view and show all the possible things that I could do, we actually make it really easy to edit and go through and change these things and change the avatars. But I'm going to say, I really want to increase my sense of self-worth. That sounds appropriate. Great job setting a goal. Let's dive deeper into how this goal is applicable to you by doing a brief journaling activity. So now we're inside of a video that spawned another activity for a dialogue, and that dialogue has now spawned a journaling activity. So I'm going to tap my mic button. What would be the first thing you would notice? Oh, this is my first time I've used the microphone, so it's asking for permission. So I'm sure that if I had more self-confidence, this presentation would go smoother. Okay, and I can play back and see if I liked what I heard. I don't want to hear my voice, though. So
I'm sure that if I had...
Okay, stop. All right, so I'm going to save my stuff. She's going to congratulate me on finishing that work, and as soon as I finish this, the video is going to continue.
Great job. Having some clear goals will help you stay focused and connected as you move through treatment.
Now, this is one of the things that we use. This is actually a real video from our ketamine trial that we're running right now. And at the end of all of our videos in the ketamine trial, we asked the patient to say whether or not they felt that this video was relevant to them, and some feedback for us to be able to look at individual videos, individual actors, and individual interstitial activities to make sure that they are, appropriate for treatment. Yeah, this was really relevant for me. I'm gonna give us really high marks, okay? And she was, yeah, sure, she was easy to understand. Okay. So we're done. That was sort of like a typical day with Introspect. And those videos, we tend to try to keep them under 2 minutes if we can. And so within some interstitial content, you're looking at maybe a 3 to 4 minute commitment per day. Now, it's your turn. So we've sent out video or links to everyone for the Introspect app. And if you've already installed the app, you've probably seen a single video, which is me sort of introducing everything. But now that we're all here together, I'm going to ask Jonathan to unlock the course for everyone. And this is an important part of how our CMS system works, is we allow for really rapid updating of content because we don't require any changes on the App Store. Everything runs off of the server model. So what's happening here is Jonathan's going to go in and he's going to check to see what's the difference between the current content that's on our stage server, which all of you are attached to. You're not on any of our trial servers. And he can see here that stage is 11 changes behind what the current development that Jonathan's doing. So he could go in actually on the system and see the deltas, exactly what had changed on each piece of content. But we're going to skip that, just close it and go ahead and send that up to the server. So he's going to go into our admin site, and our super admins only have variables in here, and he's going to change our content hash on the stage server. That's going to update within the next 2 minutes, and everyone should get a push notifications if you allowed them on your server. Please don't watch the videos while I'm talking, though. It would hurt my self-esteem, which obviously I'm working on. All the videos that we're going to see are going to be looking at videos, article surveys, dialogues, and a lot of our features. And sorry, I'm going to jump ahead for time. Okay, so now that we've seen the platform, I'd like to take a minute and talk about our core or our guiding principles about what makes Introspect different, how we create our features, our content, and our development process. So, principle number 1 that Introspect follows. Content is king. At Introspect, almost everything we do falls into 2 buckets. It's either a content or it's a feature. Now, content drives therapy. It drives our feature ideas, and it's always at the top of our minds. If you're going to build a digital therapeutic, then the therapeutic content should be the most important thing, right? But oddly enough, it's often not. I've talked to content producers and regulatory experts at DTX companies, many DTX companies, and they say content is almost always seen and produced through the lens of the company's technology, which kind of sounds like Marshall McLuhan, right? The medium, meaning tech, is the message. That's ridiculous. At Introspect, we completely disagree. For Introspect, the message is the message. It's the message that's created by skilled practitioners. It's the message that has proven clinical track record of working for patients. Let's look at how we separate out the medium and the message, or the features and the content. To us, features are completely orthogonal to content, and the features exist to serve the content. So features enable content, but they're agnostic as to what the content will be expressed by them is. Content obviously requires a feature to be experienced by the patient, but it shouldn't be beholden or defined by the way the feature is implemented. So we call this decoupling content. Here's an example of a feature request that we might get, we haven't yet, of a highly coupled content and feature together, right? Okay, we're going to give the user a sleep survey every Monday, and if they score less than 10 for 2 weeks, we assign them a sleep module. Sounds like a completely reasonable thing to do in a DTX. But what our devs would do to decouple this highly coupled request into a feature is this. We're going to give the user, not a sleep survey, any content with questions, a dialogue, a survey, and we're going to give it to them on a configured schedule that can be set up in the CMS tool. If they increment any configurable variable and it reaches a certain threshold, then perform an action. And in this case, the action would be assigning a module, but it could be emailing their health provider. It could be changing the color of their background screen, or making sure that they say a different meditation tomorrow. It's funny, we came up with this example just sort of as like a, let's think something up for the demo, but like thinking about it, we could probably implement this in Introspect today by doing absolutely no dev work. The majority of the work would be on Ed and the PTX team to actually make the sleep module. And after that, we could just implement it, push it up to stage, and test it the same day. So principle number 2, content is the rock star and tech is the roadies. What does this mean? Well, as a tech team, our job is to make sure that content looks and sounds as good as it can, and that the stage is completely set when the content needs to be on it. It means development needs to get out of the way of content timelines. We have to get our stuff done way ahead of time. It means that no content should require dev time to create, update, or test. And it means that the tech should be as flexible as the content team's wildest ideas. So the way we achieve this is with the CMS tool, which you saw earlier in the demo. It allows a content creator to upload their content, set interstitials, survey interpretations, I think we've got an interstitial one there, closed loop feedback system rules, and every other content-related entity in our system with a WYSIWYG editor. It also allows our content editors to push their content in seconds to stage in order to pre-visualize their content, so that we don't have to spend a bunch of money with actors and with production teams before we know if something's actually going to work. It does this using a version control system that provides robust auditing of all of the content changes. So who changed what, why they changed it, and when they changed it. And all of that's stored forever and allows us to roll forward and to roll back in content easily. A friend of mine who was the head of regulatory at a certain fruit-based competitor, not that one, yeah, that one. Although, ironically, he actually does work for Apple now. He once told me, a simple protocol change takes 2 weeks and an entire dev team to complete. That's unbelievable to me. It sounds like a company that has completely lost its way. I hope this isn't going to be ever a public video. I'm really sorry, pair guys. In understanding the importance and the needs of content and the needs of the content creator. For Introspect, that same protocol change likely means call Jonathan and check your phone in 10 minutes. So content is important, and devs need to take a back seat to it. But that's okay, because the third principle of Introspect is everything is content, or nearly everything. Remember our decoupling exercise a couple slides ago? The result of running that exercise is nearly everything in our system becomes configurable content rather than being hard-coded, which means all of the benefits of having an easy editor and an easy deployment system and an easy development system. So also, it allows us to do huge swaths of our work without having to resubmit our app to Apple. And I don't know if there's any Apple developers in the room, but an Apple submission can take anywhere from 2 days to, yeah, Mike. An Apple submission can take anywhere from 2 days to 10 days. So it slows down your development process if every time you need to make changes, even to something on stage or on test flight, takes that much time. We can also easily roll our content back and roll it forward without any patients having to download something from the App Store, so we can move much more quickly and seamlessly for the patient as well. Now, some of our content types are really obvious, like articles or videos or podcasts. Some of them are not so obvious, but we talked about them before, like surveys, fluency questions, media assets, and some of them are downright weird. But think about it. If you want to make a change to how the system interprets a second-order metric on the admin site, just update the content and push it. What thresholds make certain feedback loops fire? Update and push. What about what the tutorial screens look like we talked about before? Just update and push it. Having a system coded this way allows our content team to move remarkably quickly, pre-visualize all content on their local phones before committing to actors in production. Okay, principle number 4. All content can stack. We saw this earlier in the video, or in the demo that we did, where we saw a video with a dialogue that then made us do a journaling exercise, or multiple pieces of content. Here's another example. So here's a video that has an embedded dialogue in it. Inside of that dialogue is a survey look back. I think we might have that, yeah. And inside of the dialogue, there's an embedded optional article that the user can do. And finally, there's the survey responses. All of that's content. The goal of this feature, honestly, is to trick the patient. We want them to feel like, oh, I watched a video today. But they didn't really just watch a video. They watched a video, they did a survey, they did a series of fluency questions, and they had a supplementary article that they could have done all at the same time, But at the end, they said, oh, I watched a 3-minute video. Principle number 5, all content should be accessible and beautiful. So that means we use a real production team. We do not make these videos on our own. We use tried and tested techniques from experienced public speakers that we actually interview and find out how do you do what you do in order for us to be able to present this information more clearly to our patients. And finally, we strive to make our videos accessible. So we integrate different learning styles, which we'll see later, and we try to feature diverse actors and even having support for different content based on demographics. So a very small part of that for you to see on your own phone is if you're a male, you're going to see men during the tutorial on the images. If you're a female, you'll see female on the tutorials during the images. But we can do that with our videos, with our podcast, with any piece of content can be set for the demographics of the user if we can take the time and energy to make those videos. So finally, principle number 6, and this one isn't a content, finally, a non-content one, and that's high-performance teams are vulnerable and worthy of trust. This is a really virtuous cycle. You can't have vulnerability without being able to trust people. And once you can trust people, then you can have more and more vulnerability. And what you're seeing in the background here, all of this work, this is all of the content preparation and software development, all the work that goes into that. Often the time for us between ideation and the completion of a feature is less than a month. And we work on multiple features simultaneously, even with a very small team. We do this by using an agile process. We have 1-week sprints, no large upfront costs of detailed story definitions, and we define as we code. I mean, sometimes a feature request from one of the PTX team or even from Paul or our developers might be, say, I want to show images on survey questions, like Rorschach tests. And that's the whole feature, one sentence. And we commit to doing that work within our sprint. And during that sprint, we get together with Paul and with the PTX team, and we collaboratively work on what the actual requirements are. You can't move that fast without a lot of trust in your peers because everyone is risking their success and their timelines on a request that's essentially completely unknown at the time of commitment. We do premortems. So rather than having a knife fight when things go wrong, we have an easy discussion about what could go wrong in the future. The motto of our dev team is, there's no stupid questions, there's just stupid wastes of time. We have a culture where there's no shame in asking for help, and the goal is just to move forward as quickly as possible as a team and not punish people for not knowing everything. It's been really fun to see the team use this freedom and vulnerability to empower them to do creative things that they wouldn't normally do in their job descriptions. So a great example of this is Jonathan, our content developer. So he's grown from operating the content management tool that you saw earlier to being the primary developer that actually makes all of the new features on it. It's allowed us to save growing the dev team by one more, and we've been able to move him from being on the content side really into integrated in with the dev team. Another example is Matt, who I think is watching on Zoom. He above writing just therapeutic protocols and scripts for our actors, he takes extra time to pre-visualize all of his work with skits and hilarious videos of his cats acting out all of the content. So for the third section, I kind of want to talk about some of the things that we're going to be looking in the future to do. Some of this work is really cool features that we're just finishing up, but they're really not ready to do in a live demo. And some of them are stuff that we're going to be planning on doing later this year. So the first one that we're going to look at is our Dora the Explorer feature. And I don't know how many people here know Dora the Explorer. If you're not a parent in this room, you're going to be very confused. But people learn and they remember in different ways. For example, I remember something if I write it down. Others remember a name or a phrase if they repeat it immediately after hearing it for the first time. Others might do better with a quick sketch. One of our new initiatives is developing activities and features that will diversify our content so that we're reaching as many different kinds of learners as possible. So Dora the Explorer is an example of this. The Dora feature is really cool. It's an interstitial or stacked content that makes the patient repeat a phrase before the video will continue. And we use voice to text, and we actually highlight each word as they say it to guarantee that they're saying the right words, but also to let them know that we are listening. If the phrase is, recovery is a team sport, and the person says, recovery is a go screw yourself, it will ratchet along each letter and not do the rest of the sentence until they say it correctly. Let's take a look at a video demo. This is actually not faked. This is our real code, but it doesn't yet work on Android, so I wasn't able to put it into the demo for everyone to play with them for themselves.
So if there's one thing you're going to remember, it's that product is the marriage of features and content.
Product is the marriage of features and content.
And we get a nice reward image at the end. The Door feature is built for auditory learners, but our goal is to create more tools to accommodate different learning models, such as kinesthetic and even tactile learning. Next, we have face mirroring. Face mirroring is an enabling feature, meaning that we're going to use it in many different types of content. The idea is many people suffering from major depressive disorder or OUD and other mental health disorders, they need connection with others, but they might be embarrassed about their lack of self-care or the living situation that they have. Face mirroring maps their real face onto a virtual avatar that they can create themselves to create an idealized view of how they want the world to see them, to allow them to be more open, talk to people without having to be embarrassed about their circumstances. This has a lot of use in therapy, but the other advantage of this feature is really the data. So what we're doing is taking the person's face as they're answering either open-ended questions or specific questions that are meant to elicit an emotional response. We're looking at 124 data points on the face, and all of that data is being sent up into our data lake along with the audio of how they said it. So this is going to create a corpus of data that allows us to start looking at doing a biomarker based on voice or on microfacial expressions that we're pulling up from sort of the innocent idea of a daily journal where your little guy makes your daily journal. As our video content becomes richer, we want all of the rest of our digital assets to as well. So this is a feature that we're using to start softening the UI and making it more gamified, but in a content-specific way so that people can edit the experience based on any user fact about the person, how their treatment course is going, and it includes things like assets, maps, characters, and more things that will define a more gamified experience. Since these assets are considered content, then they can also be updated easily, modified by a rules system, and whatever the user is doing inside of the system. So we could, for example, make the same protocol appear totally different to an 18-year-old girl in Germany or a 48-year-old man in the Midwest of the United States. We're planning some experimentation on how the presence of celebrities and other unexpected high-reward content increases the likelihood of a patient watching more videos or watching videos more regularly or retaining content from a video more regularly. So this experiment is going to be designed to test two separate cohorts of user. One group that receives content that includes a celebrity and one that sees just control content. So randomized during their video watching, they might see one video or one celebrity, two celebrities or three celebrities at different points during the therapy. And then we're going to be looking down the road at how much that celebrity or that high-value content affects attention and adherence. How much likely are you to remember the key phrase that was being used in the video if a celebrity tells it to you as opposed to Beth, our actor? Does the user binge on content more when they know that they might see a high-value video in the future? These are really important questions that we're going to be testing to help us understand if there's any signal in leveraging those types of contents before we commit more money towards that production. And we're also starting our work on our data stream and data lake. That's the work that Justin's going to be starting when he starts here. And this is super jargony, so I'm going to try to be as clear as possible. But if you want to know more about data lakes and data stream processing, I can talk about that later. So data stream is an API that allows unstructured or semi-structured data to come in from many sources. And it comes down through an event or a data bus that allows it to have a common set of individual functions that alter that data along the stream as it moves through. And finally, it stores that into both a daily analysis lake for Introspect, as well as copying it down for a research lake for the DPD team to be able to do longer research on. We use that data lake to show things on the analytics dashboard, our admin site, to drive those feedback rules of what happens next, ML classifier training, and user facts. This project is especially challenging because of something called data residency laws in different parts of the world, which says wherever that data is created, the health information and personal information of the user is not allowed to leave the country or province of origin, which means all of this anonymization has to happen inside of the data pipe before it gets put down to a research lake where we're able to access it by our researchers. So in reality, we're really talking about having a network of data lakes around the world that all flow back into a single anonymous storage for research. Finally, some of the stuff that we're looking at sort of more than a couple quarters out is this stuff. And in keeping with our agile approach, I really can't tell you that much about it because they're just sentences at this point in time. But we are looking at doing EMR integrations. We're looking at starting to do hardware telemetry, connected watches, connected devices. And finally, we're looking at doing drop shipping so that when we're doing trials remotely or a trial that's a non-centralized trial, we can make sure that the actigraphy watches or even physical tchotchkes like journals that we're looking at using for some of our drawing-based and other types of learning models all arrive in a nice package from the person. And for us, all that is just hitting an API button. And that's sort of all I've got to show you guys. I don't know. I don't know how we're doing for time, if we have time for questions.
Gonna wrap us up.
Okay, we're good, no question time? Okay, if you need to ask questions, come and find any of us later, and I'm sure we'd love to talk your ear off about some of this stuff. Thank you so much.